If there is one moment that defines the betrayal of indigenous nations by the United States government, it is the Trail of Tears. Not just a journey of displacement, but a calculated act of ethnic cleansing wrapped in law and indifference. The story begins in the early 1800s with the rise of cotton agriculture in the southeastern United States. White settlers, hungry for land, turned their eyes toward territories inhabited by the so-called five civilized tribes, the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole, who had adopted many Western customs, including written languages, centralized governments, and even Christianity. Some even owned plantations and enslaved Africans. But assimilation offered no protection. These tribes stood on fertile lands that the white settlers and the U.S. government wanted. In 1830, under President Andrew Jackson, Congress passed the Indian Removal Act. This law gave the federal government the authority to forcibly relocate native nations from their ancestral homelands in the southeast to what was called Indian Territory, a distant region west of the Mississippi River in present-day Oklahoma. The law was passed amid fierce resistance. The Cherokee Nation, led by Chief John Ross, took their case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in Worcester v. Georgia, 1832, and they won. The court ruled that the Cherokee had the right to self-govern and that their land could not be taken without consent. But President Jackson ignored the ruling. His infamous reply, "John Marshall has made his decision, now let him enforce it." And so began the forced removals. The Choctaw were the first to be expelled. In 1831, thousands were forced to march in freezing temperatures with inadequate supplies. An estimated 6,000 Choctaw died from hunger, disease, and exposure. The Cherokee removal came in 1838. Despite legal victories and petitions to Congress, they were rounded up by U.S. troops, held in internment camps, and marched over 1,200 miles in what became known as the Trail of Tears. More than 16,000 Cherokees were forced to make the journey. Over 4,000 died, mostly the elderly, children, and the sick. Survivors recalled frozen rivers, mass graves, starvation, and the haunting cries of those left behind. This was not an unfortunate tragedy. It was deliberate. Soldiers burned homes, destroyed crops, and looted sacred sites. Families were separated. Elders who refused to leave were bayoneted. Christian missionaries who tried to help were silenced. One U.S.